Hello, Eric again. Just wanted to go through rebuilding his Traxxas / transmission. Same with the Bandit or Rustler. Now I've taken all the screws out and loosened them. If you leave them hanging in the case like that, it's a lot easier to figure out where they go because there's like 4 different size screws. Okay, if the case splits in half, there's bearings here. Now if you want to pop them out, we're not going to be doing a bearing change. Just take a pick or a screwdriver or something, work them a little bit back and forth, and normally they slide right out. They will come out. This one you can get from the back side, where the drive shaft comes out. This one here, you work it back and forth a little bit and it'll pop out of there. There. Pops right out real easy every time. But these bearings are good inside this transmission, so I just wanted to show you how to do it. Set this half of the case aside. Then this is the differential part of your transmission. Okay? This is the idler gear. It comes in on a shaft, it'll pop, it slides right out. Now on the end of the shaft, there's washers, there's shims. They're very small, they're very thin. But you will see them, and one goes on each side of the idler, and one goes on each side of your input shaft. Okay? I'm going to pop this one off and I'd like to show you something. If you pull your transmission all apart and everything seems like it's really good, and you put it back together and you set it down and it doesn't go anywhere other than about a foot. No, I gotta look. You see that roll pin in there? It's kind of hard to see, but there's a roll pin right here. Okay? If that roll pin shears off, and I've seen it happen before, it'll make it about 3 feet and it'll stop moving again. So that's one thing you got to look for, make sure that's in good shape. Now I cleaned all the parts up on this before the video. So I put a shim on, I flip it over, I put another shim on. So you got 2 shims and you can slide that right through that spot in the case. Okay. Then the idler gear, there's a pin. It goes right in that plastic hole. And you put a shim on it. Okay, now there's 2 bearings inside this idler gear. They pop right out if you're going to change them. If you have the plastic stock gear in the transmission, replace it with a metal one. They also make an aluminum one. Whichever one you choose to go with, get the plastic one out of there because it's going to fail. Okay, so that brings us up to this part. You push on the bottom. Oh, everything's going good. I just had this apart too. There we go. Take it out, and you can dump all the gears out. Okay? Like I said, before I started, everything was nice and I cleaned everything up nice. Now you're going to see 4 holes in here.
You can't even see them.
Okay. You can't see them in the video because the iPad doesn't have enough a good enough picture. But these 4 silver shafts will go in each one of them holes. Okay, when you're putting it back together, you take the output shaft, because your drive shaft hooks up to here, you put that in first. Then you take, these idler gears can go in any spot. Drop 2 of them in. You have to turn that a little bit to make sure they drop down in the gear mesh. Put the next 2 in. They drop down where they're supposed to. Now, in one of the 2 drive shafts, there's a little pin. It goes just like that. Okay? And this is the important part for the next step. That goes right in the center of your output shaft. At this point in time is when we put the grease in. Now a lot of people wonder what grease to put in these things. We're going with 1.5 million weight oil. Now the reason we do that is to give it doesn't lock the differential up totally, but it doesn't let it slip very much. So both wheels drive at about the same speed, which is good for cornering and stuff. Now this 1.5 million oil is kind of challenging because it doesn't pour. It's that thick. And basically you just mush it in there. Now, one other thing you got to watch out for is the 4 screw holes right there. Try not to get this stuff in them holes, because when you go to put your screws in, it messes it up and it won't let them get in there. Make sure everything's coated, spin it a few times, mush it in there some more. I generally pack the differential pretty close to full. After you do it a few times, you'll figure out how much is too much. Because in the next step, when I put the top cover on, it won't go on. Just try and pack it all in there. If you don't get all the spots, it'll get around over time. Okay, then you take your output shaft, you stick it in there. Okay, now you'll notice that you have 2 of the idler gears in here that are high and 2 that are low. You can see the bumps on these. They have to go to the low ones. Then you also have to worry about the 4 holes to line up for the screws. So it goes just like that. I know you can't really see it in the video, but once you get it apart, you'll see it. Now to test it, we're gonna... It turns very, very stiff. It'll give you the nice feel of posi, but it won't actually be locked. Now you can see this cover goes in there perfectly. That's what you want. Then there's 4 screws. And with the right driver, you can put them in. There's been a lot of times when I first started, when I put them together, and I put too much grease in it, and I couldn't push that top plate down all the way. You can't force it. You'll just end up breaking a plate. And to buy this piece is about 15 bucks. Okay, you should never have to mess with this again. The grease helps to not let the teeth blow off the idler gears, because they're not letting them move very much. So you don't need a ton of force on these screws. Then this goes in. It'll go in with this down. You get a nice rolling transmission. Now we have an SHC 220. It's just a synthetic grease, nothing special. And I normally put a spot there, put a spot there, and I take my other finger and I just wipe it off. And you don't need much grease in these. I just fill up a couple spots of the teeth and I call that good to go. As it spins, it runs the grease all the way around each gear. So then you're nice and greased up. Take the other half of the transmission, put it right over the top, tighten up all your screws, and you're ready to go. That's a rebuilt transmission. So, have a good one.